independent contractors. It's a course that I started working on before I went up to Louisville this year at Expo, but this was kind of the hot topic up there. Companies that, no matter what size they are, have started implementing hiring independent 1099 subcontractors, even to do mowing jobs. So we work with a fairly large landscape maintenance company with Turfs Up Radio, and he said that about half of the 300 yards that they are cutting a week, about a half of them are subbed out to independent contractors. And so we talked heavily about that. And then as we moved through the expo and talking to several other landscapers, a lot of people are doing that. So it's good to see that that's happening, and it's good to see how that has benefited them. And they are saying they're actually saving money on expenses and actually taking home more profit by using the independent contractor. And I can see how that really works when it comes to mowing, because you're dealing with that single owner operator who cares about his work, or she cares about the work that they're doing. And so they're taking their time, they're doing a good job, and they're charging a fair price. And the larger landscape contractor is able to make some money off of it and have properties in their portfolio that look good. So this is what this course is about: hiring independent contractors. But before we get started, we have a disclaimer. This presentation is not legal, financial, or tax advice. It is the final word on today's. It is not the final word on today's topics. So it's going to change. It's going to move about, and it could change next week depending on what the IRS and FSLA, all of that matters, and they may change their rulings on it, because there was a new rule that came out March 11th of 2024, and it is not a political opinion. So we don't talk politics in these courses. We're not supposed to. I know sometimes it gets carried away, but it is not a political opinion. And so before taking any action on the information given out in this presentation, landscape and irrigation contractors should review this material with internal and or external counsel. So pick up the phone, spend that $300, and talk to your attorney if you need more what would be considered legal advice on this topic. And so our agenda, we're going to talk about the challenges for small businesses using contractors. So there are some issues with it. There's some problems, and there's ways to work around them. And then there's some that we just can't. If we're going to use independent contractors, there's just certain things that we can't control with these companies. We're going to talk about maintaining compliance, meaning the worker classification and the tax obligations that we are required to track and turn in and file on a yearly basis. We're going to talk about onboarding talent. Like, how do we find these subcontractors? Where are they at? How do we recruit them, and how do we get them on board with working for us and wanting to keep working for us? And then how do we pay the independent contractors? We don't pay them, every Friday like we do employees. As a home builder myself as well, and we've built, a few homes here and there. We did more in the early 2000s than we have done in a while. But when it comes to paying these guys, a lot of our subcontractors would show up on Fridays, and they weren't scheduled to work for us until Monday. And they're wanting a down payment, or they're wanting, half up front to get started. It don't work like that. You can't do that. And then we're going to discuss using automatic ways to track this information. So leveraging automation. How do we track it? What kind of filing system do we have? Is it mingled in with our regular employees, or do we need to keep it separate? Well, we want to keep it separate. And then last but not least, we'll leave some time for some questions and answers. So the challenges that landscape and irrigation contractors are facing is one, independent contractor use is growing because it fills a specific need. Now think about that. You may be a landscape contractor who has clients that wants irrigation systems, and you don't have the irrigation license, so you want to hire or sub out the irrigation to a licensed irrigation company. We see that a lot in this business. And usually when you find a good irrigator, you're going to want to keep them. You're going to want to keep them busy so that they're working for you, and they're not actually out trying to grow their business. If you're wanting to use them on all of your projects, you're going to try to keep them busy. But 71% of companies plan to increase their use of subcontractors in the next year. And why is that? Well, we can tell you it's hard to find employees. But there are a lot of people in the green industry that are running their own business. You know, we're landscape contractors. The three of us sitting here talking in this webinar. We have the license. That means we've got the insurance, we've got the bond, we've got the knowledge. We are true, legitimate professionals. And I tell everyone that comes to the seminars and webinars, why aren't we hiring? We spend so much time complaining about the unlicensed professional, but why not hire them to actually work underneath our license and sub out some of this work? We can do a lot with a laptop and a clipboard. We can oversee a lot of projects ourselves and see a lot of good work get done and not have to worry about sharpening blades at night, changing oil in tractors or skid steers on Saturdays. We can actually close our business at 5 o'clock and reopen it at 8 o'clock the next morning if we're not dealing with employees or dealing with the equipment, if we start using subcontractors. But these subs, they have specialized skills that we need. You know, I'm an irrigation contractor, but the last 2 irrigation jobs we've had to do, I've subbed it out. We did the landscape job. I just didn't have time to do the irrigation ourselves. And for one, if I did have the time, I knew that somebody that is doing irrigation every single day, they're going to be in and out. And then I can do my landscape job and get the job done quicker, faster, more professional, and get that check a lot sooner. The jobs aren't dragging out. So we want to have these specialized skills in our back pockets. Same thing with hardscapes. You know, it's to me, it's just as easy to hire that out to an individual that has 1 or 2 employees that's all they do is hardscapes. Hey guys, we got a project coming up in 2 weeks. We'd love for you to do the job. We've already, got them on board. We know what it is that they can do and what they can't do. We've got all their accounting information needed. It's a matter of saying, we've got one coming up in 2 weeks, plan for it. And the best thing about it, guys, look, it's coming on wintertime, right? And if you're not putting up holiday lights or anything like that, in rainy days, we're going to have individuals that are getting a little upset. You know, Christmas is coming. They need extra hours. They want to have money to spend on their family, but the green industry may slow down a little bit based on weather. We're getting all this rain and no snow. We're sitting at home. With a subcontractor, it doesn't matter. We don't have to worry about trying to keep people or anything like that. All right. Some other challenges that we're going to face is inefficiency. Having to reprioritize due to inefficiencies in managing contractors. It's a little different. For one, they do not come to our place of business. They're not coming to our shop and leaving out with us. They are independent contractors, meaning they set their own schedule. If they don't want to work at 7 o'clock in the morning when our guys leave out and they start at 9, they're independent contractors. They can do that. So we have to possibly hire, a project manager or something, depending on the size of our companies, to actually manage these subcontractors, because that's a job in itself. But if you're wanting to keep it smaller and maybe managing 2 or 3 projects, you can do that yourself, like I said, with a clipboard and a laptop, checking on these jobs and basically doing the scheduling and keeping everything efficient for these guys. With the scale, the use of contractors would not allow for easy scaling without more admin staff. So yeah, I would say for myself, I would feel comfortable managing 2 or 3 nice size landscape jobs without any employees or without any equipment. I think we could keep enough stuff going. If you're using it for maintenance, mowing, or even subbing out your lawn care, stuff like that, you may need to have additional staff that's going to help you, because accounts payable, accounts receivable, all of that's still going to play. And it depends if you're going to have these contractors purchase the materials, or you're going to be purchasing it yourself as a general contractor would on building a home. General contractor orders all materials. He's subbing out the labor. So your framing contractor is not going to bring in the 2x4s and the OSB. It's going to be delivered and paid for by the builder, and then your carpenters, use the products that's been delivered there from the lumberyard. That's probably the best way to do it, because just knowing some of the nightmares that we've seen with subcontractors, they are paid for materials, and then yet, Pine Hall Brick is calling us and saying, hey, this job on such and such address, such and such street, we haven't been paid for yet. And you've made the payment to the subcontractor and they haven't paid for materials. So there we get into needing that extra staff, probably to help us with the lien agent and making sure that these subs are taking care of everything like that. Time. Managing contractors takes up valuable time that could be dedicated elsewhere. But if you are moving in that direction and that's all you're doing is managing subcontractors, I think the time could you could save time and actually have a little bit of time off. I see it being a problem if you're still having 20 employees and then you're trying to work with 6 or 7 different subcontractors on different jobs. That's where your time is going to be eat up, because it's going to be going back and forth. But still, it just depends on the size of the company that you have or are working with. When it comes to compliance, more than half of small businesses are only somewhat familiar or not very familiar what distinguishes a 1099 worker versus a W-2 employee. And do we really know the difference? We may think we do, yes. But the biggest misconception is a lot of guys that I've talked to, they're saying, I'm paying my guys and giving them a 1099. Well, if they're showing up at your shop every day at 8 o'clock, they're wearing your uniform, they're getting in a truck that you own and using the equipment that you own, and everything's lettered up and logoed up, they're a W-2 employee. They are not a 1099 subcontractor. You cannot tell a 1099 contractor to show up at your shop every day at 8 o'clock. You just can't. They're independent. They can show up to the job site when they feel necessary to be there. That's what makes them self-employed. They have that entrepreneurial spirit just like you do starting a company. So you have to relinquish some control of the 1099 worker versus the W-2. Other things would come like with vacation, everything like that. You don't have to give a 1099 worker time off or paid time off or vacation or sick time like that as you would in a benefits package to a W-2 employee. I have had people in our seminars talk about doing this, paying employees as a 1099, but the individuals are actually renting the equipment from the actual landscape contractor. So the landscape contractor buys the truck, buys the trailer, has the mowers, has everything on it. He's leasing the equipment out to people that work for him, and then they rent it from him, and then he turns around and pays them as a 1099. That's when I would want to seek legal advice. I would want to talk to my attorney before I actually did that. Sounds legit, but you might just want to make sure and discuss that with the appropriate counsel and make sure that it is okay to do that. But just understand the big difference is with the 1099er, you can't tell them when to show up or what to wear. They don't have to wear your uniform. They don't need to drive your trucks or anything like that. They need to have a chance to make a profit and loss. And that is one of the 6 factors that determines what is an independent contractor. We'll see here in a little bit. It's the totality of the circumstances test. And so the Department of Labor adopted new independent contractor test. The U.S. Department of Labor adopted a new rule for determining whether a worker is an employee or a contractor. We're going to open that link up. This is under the Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA. We talked about that last year a lot in the classes, the Fair Labor Standards Act. And then effective as of March 11th, 2024, this new totality of the circumstances test will include 6 factors for making the determination. So we're going to open up the rule first. And I may have to drag it over to the screen. Let's see. Well, for some reason, there we go. My apologies on that. Got to open it up in a different screen. All right. Can y'all see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Good deal. All right. And so this is the new independent contractor test. And basically, both of these links are pretty much the same. But the final rule, effective March 24th, right here, Department of Labor's new final rule gives us this test, and there's 6 things. The opportunity for profit or loss depending on a managerial skill. All right, so this independent contractor, they have the opportunity to make a profit, or they can mess up and have a loss. Well, that's not a W-2 employee. That is a 1099. This factor considers whether the worker has opportunities for profit or loss based on managerial skill, including initiative or business acumen or judgment that affect the worker's economic success or failure in performing the work. The following facts, among others, can be relevant where the worker determines or can meaningfully negotiate the charge for pay for work provided, and whether the worker accepts or declines jobs or chooses the order and or time in which the jobs are performed, whether the worker engages in marketing, advertising, and other efforts to expand their business or secure more work, and whether the worker makes decision to hire others, purchase material and equipment, and or rent space. And so, if a worker has no opportunity for a profit or loss, then this factor suggests that the worker is an employee, not a W-2 employee. Investments by the worker and the employer. This factor considers whether an investment by a worker are capital or entrepreneurial in nature. Cost to a worker of tools and equipment to perform a specific job, cost of workers' labor, and cost that the potential employer imposes unilaterally on the worker, for example, are not evidence of capital or entrepreneurial investment and indicate employee status. So basically, if they're purchasing their own equipment, their own tools and everything else, and they're using it on the jobs to make money, they are an independent contractor. Degree of permanence of the work relationship. This factor weighs in favor of the worker being an employee when the work relationship is indefinite in duration, continuous, or exclusive of work for other employers. So an independent contractor can work for other landscape contractors and other people. They're not just yours. If you're prohibiting that, they are an independent, they are a 1090, they are a W-2 employee. They are not 1099. Let's see. This factor weighs in favor of the worker being an independent contractor. The work relationship is definite duration, non-exclusive, project-based, or sporadic, based on the worker being in business for themselves and marketing their services and labor to multiple entities. So again, you're hiring them on a project base. So they may put this irrigation system in for you Wednesday and Thursday and Friday of this week. They're working for somebody else next week, and then you can use them again the following week. They are not with you every single day. Nature and degree of control. But let me go back to that number 3, because I know home builders that use the same framing contractors on every house. Well, they may have 4 or 5 houses going on at one time. They finish them, then they're starting more. Yes, the subcontractor may be working just for that builder for that period of time, but again, it's project based. They finish one house, then they go to the next house. It ain't like they're showing up and actually only doing that builder's house. It may just be for that certain period of time. But nature and degree of control. This factor considers the potential employer's control, including reserve control over the performance of the work and the economic aspects of the working relationship. Facts relevant to the potential employee's control over the worker include whether the potential employer sets the worker's schedule, supervises the performance, of the work, or explicitly limits the worker's ability to work for others. Additionally, facts relevant to the potential employer's control over the worker include whether the potential employee uses technological means to supervise the performance of the work, such as means by device or electronically, reserves the right to supervise or discipline workers, or places demands and restrictions on workers who do not allow them to work for others. So again, very similar to number 3, the permanency of work. And then number 5, extent to which the work performed is an integral part of the employer's business. This factor considers whether the work performed is an integral part of the potential employer's business. This factor does not depend on whether any individual worker or particular is an integral part of the business, but rather whether the function they perform is an integral part of the business. It weighs in favor of the worker being an employee when the work they perform is critical, necessary, or central to the potential employer's principal business. So a hardscape contractor is not going to hire another hardscaper to do that type of work if that's their main business. We're landscape contractors. Yes, irrigation, we've got that job because it's a part of that package, and we're subbing out that part of it. But if we were an irrigation contractor, we're not going to sub out to other irrigation contractors. That would make them an employee.
Do you have to have an irrigation license to sub out irrigation?
No, sir. A landscape contractor can sub out to an irrigation contractor.
Okay. What if they don't have the license? Then you can't do it. They can't do it.
You can't do it. Yeah, okay. They can't do it either. So
yeah.
you'd want to find a reputable irrigation company to do your irrigation work.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're allowed to hire irrigation contractors to do that work for you, just as you were, a hardscaper. You can hire an electrician, to come and wire some electrical outlets if you're going to be putting in landscape lighting. So a landscape contractor, basically, when it comes to the outside, we can act as the GC and be in charge of that whole project. So gotcha. It's there's some other laws that did change this year. One is
not everybody doing hardscapes is licensed from what I can see out there.
You're field. Right. Yeah. A lot of the hardscapers may have a general contractor's license, which would cover them. But again, yeah, I mean, it's just as bad. And see, hardscape jobs, they're really breaking both laws if they didn't have it.
Yeah.
I mean, general contractor law now is raised to 45,000, where we're still at 30,000. And they did that mainly because of the deck guys. There's so many guys just building decks, and they were pushing that threshold of $30,000, so they give them an extra 15, because they're having to pull permits anyway because it's structural. So
Right.
they're as long as it's being inspected and stuff like that, the state legislation said, well, we'll let these deck guys continue if they're just doing decks. And so there are several guys out there that do great work. And do they really need a GC license to do that? Maybe not. But they still have to
If they're
pull the
inspected,
permits.
they don't. They shouldn't have to.
If what now?
If they're inspected.
Yeah, and so that's the key, is
they
that
got
it
a
is
code,
being.
they got a standard to build it to.
Yeah. Something that a lot of people don't know now is that any job performed on a property, $40,000 or more in the state of North Carolina, requires a building permit. No matter if it's painting. So if you're a painting contractor and you've been hired to paint the inside and outside, and it's more than $40,000, you have to pull a building permit.
Wow.
They're not going to come inspect painting, but that building permit notifies the tax office that the property value has been increased, and it gives them that tax base to charge more. So any work over $40,000 now requires a building permit.
Wow.
Even landscaping. So if you were doing a landscape job, $40,000, and if it's a new house, if it's new home construction, the builder's already pulled that permit. But
Right.
let's say you're hired to come in and renovate, rip out the front, put in irrigation, new foundation, hardscape patios in the back, and it's over $40,000, which really has nothing to do with our threshold of $30,000 to be licensed. But if it's over $40,000, you've got to pull that building permit. That way they can add the value to the house, and get the property tax out of it. So that was something new implemented, and a lot of people don't know that. And I would probably say a lot of smaller community planning departments may not even know that. But 40 grand and above, pull that permit. And number 6, the skill and initiative. This factor considers whether the worker uses specialized skills to perform the work or whether those skills contribute to business-like initiative. It indicates employee status where the worker does not use specialized skills in performing the work, or where the worker is dependent on training from the potential employer to perform the work. So we can't teach these independent contractors what to do. They need to be hired and already know how to do it. And we can't supervise them. We can't stand over them as if they were an employee. We've got to really turn the job over to them, let them do their job, and then move forward. But those are the 6 factors that is considered what they call the totality of the circumstances economic reality test on determining whether they are W-2 or 1099. And so basically they're, like I said, effective March 11th, 24, included those 6 factors that we just did read. And this kind of shortens it up. But again, 1, the opportunity for profit or loss depending on managerial skill. So if they stand a chance to make a profit or they're at risk at losing money, they are a 1099 employee. Investments by the worker and employer to determine economic independence. So they're using their equipment that they've bought, the tools, the skid steer, the truck and trailer. They're a 1099er. The degree of permanence of the work relationship, and nature and degree of control. These kind of work hand in hand. You can't require them to only work for you. They're allowed to market their company and work for other people, and do different types of work for whatever reason for other people. You can't totally control them. And you cannot supervise them and stand over them and watch them like a hawk. Again, turn the job over to them, let them get it done. And then 5, extent to which the work performed is an integral part of the employer's business. So a hardscape company is not going to sub out to another hardscape company. They would be considered an employee if that is the case. And then the skill and initiative that these individuals, they have a trade that is needed by you to finish the job, and they are taking the initiative to have their own business.
So, question.
Yes, sir.
You said a hardscape company can't sub out to another hardscape company.
That would interfere with the number 5 of the economic. I mean, you could sub them out, but they would be considered an employee, not a 1099er.
So if I'm a maintenance company and I sub out part of the maintenance, wouldn't that still be the same thing?
That would be very similar to it. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. But, a lot of this stuff, and what I'm seeing a lot of guys are doing, they're subbing out just the mowing. And they're going back
out to shrub trimming.
And you're subbing out the shrub trimming. You're subbing out a horticultural part. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. 100%. You're actually going and mowing and doing the fertility apps, and then you're subbing out the pruning and some other stuff to people.
Yep.
Correct. Yeah, you're safe.
The mowing by myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, it's 4 of us doing the mowing now, and we're doing 60 yards a week.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yep. And then you just hire out to another company to do your pruning. Are y'all doing most of your mulch and pine needles, or are you subbing that out?
I'm gonna start subbing all that out too if I can get somebody to respond.
Yeah,
that's the problem. I mean, some of the mulch companies and pine needles, they're 6, 7, 8 months behind.
Wow.
So it's like they don't even answer the phone.
Yeah, they got that much work. Well, and with the interest rates being dropped now to what, 3.5%, 4%, somewhere in that range.
Is that
there's going to be, huh?
Is that where they're at now?
Yeah. My wife told me today that that's where they dropped it at. So we're going to see an increase in new construction, and so everybody's going to be building. We'll probably see building materials go up. They're sky high anyway, but they'll probably go up again just because the rates dropped, and it's going to put more pressure on them to have the resources or have the materials available.
They ain't slowed down building around here, but I don't see nothing getting full.
Yeah.
There's houses sitting everywhere. Apartments are already full before they're ever finished building. Yeah.
People waiting to get into them things.
Yeah.
So, well, it's just hard for, young person to purchase a home,
especially
with the rates.
$4,000 a month when you rent an apartment for 2.
Yeah. And even $2,000 a month's crazy. But
I would have never done it.
Well, no. I mean, the other thing is, I don't know if y'all, I've got a serious increase on my homeowner's insurance this year and property tax.
Yes,
it gets very difficult for me to think about a new, newlyweds coming out here right out of college or something, buying a house. I know what they afford it's tough for me, but I can't imagine coming out and having $1,000 house payment or $1,000 property tax and home insurance payment and your payment for your house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's crazy. So, but I got a question, Eric, on this. I know we might not have gotten there to it yet, but when you get audited for your insurance and you got 1099 employees, don't you have to cover the cost of what they do on your insurance?
Yeah, what it is. So when we get a workers' comp, yeah, if they don't have it, you've got to pay it. So every time you write a check to a subcontractor, request that certificate of insurance.
How do you know if it's good or not? Can't they give you something and not actually have it? Because I've heard nightmare stories. I don't do a lot of subcontracting, but I have heard
from the insurance company.
It's going to come from their insurance company.
Okay.
And what happens, because guys, I'll be honest with you, I've let mine lapse, just totally forgot to pay the workers' comp bill. And you're dropped immediately. And they send a letter to whoever they've sent a certificate to. And so I start getting calls, especially from like doing government work or working for a town or a city. Hey, Eric, your workers' comp, we need a new certificate. I'm like, oh, shoot, forgot to pay it. Then you got to go and pay it and get them to send a new certificate and all that. So it's just one of those things. When we write a check to a sub, hey, call your insurance company and get them to send me a certificate of insurance. If you want your check, you will do that.
Right.
And you can withhold that check and say, I need that certificate of insurance. And it needs to make sure that that check is written in between that coverage period. Because I've seen it where you give the guys a check and it's dated October 30th, which is today. Well, they get their policy tomorrow that starts October 31st. Well, they weren't covered the day you wrote them or the days that they were working for you. So you got to make sure, again, that's where they say that extra admin staff might be necessary to kind of make sure that's all legit. But I would never take a certificate of insurance from a subcontractor that I'm using if he handed it to me. If he did, I'm going to call the insurance agent real quick and say, hey, I just got a certificate. Is his policy in effect? But you need to make sure that they actually do have it. And it's better, like James said, to get it from the insurance company.
Well, when y'all are doing
workers' comp too, don't you?
Do I now?
You got to have workers' comp and comprehensive, don't you?
Yeah. Well, general liability, yes.
General liability and workers' comp.
And we have to have that to have our landscape contractor license.
Yeah. But I mean, does the sub have to have that too?
Yeah.
The subcontractor would have to have workers' comp and general liability, or you're going to pay it. So if you write
you're going to pay the workers' comp anyway.
Yep.
And it's based on how much they are paid?
Yes. So if you're using that sub, all year round, and let's say $100,000 and you find out they don't have workers' comp, you're going to be paying workers' comp on $100,000.
Well, also, see, that's the thing. I've got a tree company that's going to do a job for me soon, and I know he's got general liability, but he told me he don't have workers' comp, so I bumped up the price, and basically it's $3,000 more for compensation. But I don't think I'm going to spend that kind of money.
Yeah, and the arborist,
it's based on the amount of money you pay them, ain't it?
It is, but arborists and roofers have the highest workers' comp rate.
Yeah.
So
well, the other thing is if you're subcontracting to a hardscape guy, or let's just say, like you said, you're too busy, you can't do the irrigation, so you sub it out and you let him do the irrigation. If he doesn't have workman's comp, then you're paying it on the whole bill, including his pipe, glue, fittings, and everything. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So you're not just paying it on his labor like you would if it was an employee. You're paying the whole tab. If it's $10,000 for the irrigation job, you're paying workman's comp on the $10,000 bill.
Yes. Yep. Because he's not breaking it down on his invoice. He's going to give you a price, 4 zones at $2,500 a piece, and that's your $10,000. And your auditor is going to be like, okay, he didn't have workers' comp. Well, we got to charge you workers' comp on $10,000.
Right.
So
is it like 3% on us, and is it like 6% on a tree guy?
I forget what theirs is, but I know that and a roofer is the highest out there.
Yeah, it's more than that. I'm pretty sure they're like 12 or 15%.
Yep.
For roofers and tree guys.
And so that's a chunk of change on a big job.
Well, I've at least covered it.
Oh, you covered it.
Yeah. Because it's it's a $12,000 job, but his part of it's $9,000.
Here's why would somebody a tree company not want to have workers' comp? Because he
subs people to come to work for him. He's got a climber that he comes and works for him when he got a tree to climb, and he rents a bucket truck from another guy that comes in bucket trucks. So most of it, all he does is take the loader and haul the stuff off.
But you know what? If he had what they call a ghost policy, which is really just a policy to give to you, James, so you wouldn't have to pay it. He's going to spend what, $1,200 a month? I mean, a year for something like that. But then he's got to go through the audit and make sure all of his people have it. But man, tree jobs though, that's just because somebody can get hurt bad,
Big
if not
time.
killed.
Yeah.
So, it's not like cutting grass.
Mm-hmm.
They may throw a rock in their eye or something. Have to go to emergency clinic to like that taken care of.
So with this being said, should I contact my workers' comp insurance company prior to doing this job?
I would let them know. I mean, I would want to do the right thing and say, hey, what do we need to do? And you know what? They may reach out to him and try to sell him a policy and get him and explain. I wouldn't.
It's minimum considering what you could lose.
Exactly.
There's a guy here that got killed in a bucket truck, and they sued him for everything he had. He lost everything.
Yes. I would not. I could not.
A whole lot cheaper.
I could not let my guys leave the shop without knowing that policy is in place.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Anyway, but there are people that think they don't need it, so it'll catch up with them, man. It'll eventually catch up with them.
Yep.
Well, if you get something that's real sketchy, I'll tell you something that I've done before. I'm not sure it's legal, but what I did is we had a situation where we had a big tree job, and my guy was similar to what you were talking about, James. I mean, he didn't have all his ducks in a row. I really didn't want to try to pay the 1099 for this guy. Honestly, I didn't know what it was going to be. I didn't know what workman's comp was going to be. Kind of got a little out of control. So I told him, I said, look, I'm going to let you work directly with the customer, and you give me a 10% kickback. And we worked it out. And I told the customer I wasn't going to mark them up any. I said, I'm not going to mark this up at all. You can deal with my tree guy, and we'll just keep this out of the contract. And they agreed. And it actually worked out beautifully because I got my same 10% that I was going to get. The customer paid the contractor, and there was no workman's comp involved.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, that's what you need to do on this.
As long as they don't get hurt.
Well, if they got hurt, it would come back on your customer, not you.
Yeah,
exactly. It'd have been on their homeowner's insurance policy.
Yeah, it would be on their homeowner's insurance policy.
This is apartment complex, so that ain't gonna happen.
That ain't gonna happen, no. But I will say that I have done that before. I'm not sure if it's kosher, but honestly, it one of those jobs that did not have any tree work in it originally, started having some. Then the folks wanted to say, hey, well, why you got the guy here? Let's do this, let's do that. I said, hey, look, we've already got this contract that's separate. Let me let you work directly with my tree guy. You pay him, and then you can just be square with him. I won't put it in my contract. I'm not going to mark it up. I went to my tree guy and I said, look, I'm going to let you work directly with the homeowner. They're going to pay you. However, you owe me a 10% fee for this, getting you hooked up here. He was cool with it. He paid us 10%, and we had no heartburn at all.
Yeah. Right. And that, I mean, to be honest with you, Bill, that sounds legal. I mean, that was the,
it is. Yeah.
That was the homeowner hiring the arborist to do it. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
But in my situation, it wouldn't be because he still got to have it both for that apartment.
And I do see what James is saying, because right now it seems like this is the norm. You got a guy who's renting this from this guy and renting this from this guy and got this climber that's coming. It's not like anybody's got their company put together, especially in the tree business.
It's so hard to work.
I mean, they're very volatile type people. They have a hard time keeping the same crew.
The climber, all he wants to do is climb.
Yeah.
He don't want to do nothing else.
Absolutely.
Yep. So, that is, Bill, you're right about that. It's a different crowd. And
it is a different crowd.
And James, like you said, that is hard work. I want no business with tree work.
Yeah.
And,
I'm going to end up helping a guy, and he's going to end up paying me to help him.
Yeah.
So I'm going to end up paying him at the end, but I just wanted to make sure, I'm covered. which I mean, I do some tree work according to my insurance, but nothing like we're getting ready to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know how I'm gonna have to call my insurance company before we do it just to make sure everything's covered. And he hands me the general liability before we get started.
Yeah. And what's the name of his company? Is it like Jim's Tree Cutting, or is it
AAA Tree Service?
Okay, so yeah, it's got tree in the name, and that's what's on the check. That's where they're going to get you.
Yeah.
So, if it would have been like, James Worrell Enterprises or whatever, they're not going to pick up that was an arborist bill.
Right.
So,
yeah, I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that one because he's done some work before, but it was a small amount, and I was able to list it under something different.
True. Yeah.
But it's just still I got to get a hold of the insurance company just to make sure we're square.
Yeah.
Because this is a pretty big job, and I don't want to mess up nothing.
True. And I've heard people even have, where they're like that, where they do lawn and tree applications because it had tree in the name. They thought they were an arborist, or they may have been a certified arborist. They're just not climbing or cutting down trees. They're actually doing injections and fertility and, doing the core drilling and stuff maintenance on the tree. But they, had tree in the title of their company. So all the work that they were doing was, at that workers' comp rate. So,
they were actually doctoring trees and not cutting them.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So how do we mitigate risk? Well, we need to use written contractor agreements to delineate the nature of the worker relationship. We need to cover project time frame, when's it going to be done, how they're going to get paid, and the worker's tax responsibility. So you need to let them know, guys, you're going to get a 1099 at the end of the year. You're going to be responsible for paying your taxes. Make sure you get an invoice for your auditing purposes. Only pay based on that invoice. And Bill, you're talking about people, that are a different crowd. I see this a lot in the green industry, not just from arborists, but also other guys. They don't have computers. They don't type up invoices or anything. They go to Office Depot and they buy one of these little books that they can throw away, and they give you a handwritten copy. No, you need to have something legit. I like payment applications. When you work a lot for builders, they're going to have a payment application that's going to get notarized. It's going to have the invoice attached to it. And then you're going to let them know, hey, if you submit payment by the 15th of the month, or submit your payment application by the 15th of the month, you'll be paid by the 30th. They need to know all of that payment terms in that written agreement. And anything over $5,000, guys, we got to have in a written agreement anyway. That's part of our license law. And of course, if you have any issues with this, seek support from legal counsel. Consider using a separate system to manage your contractors versus W-2s. Manage specific assignments, collect contractor agreements, and store invoices, etc. So basically, you need your own, document storage system, or, even a separate workstation and a different project manager that's going to handle these independent contractors if you're using them all the time and they're part of the work that you're doing. Ensure the contractor receives the Form 1099 and not a Form W-2. So make sure they get that 1099. Grant as much control to the worker as possible and confirm the worker is truly independent. And then regularly review and audit worker status individually and collectively. Now, this independent contractor can't depend on you for, hey, I need this, or hey, can you bring me this? Hey, I need a dump truck for this, or can you bring your skid steer over there and help me do this? They are becoming an employee at that time, not an independent contractor. And electronic filing update for 2024 returns. Electronic filing. Beginning in 2024, the IRS will require most businesses that file 10 or more information returns to do so electronically. It used to have, I think it was like 250 returns. So that threshold has dropped down to 10 in 2024. Again, yeah, I was right. The original threshold was 250 returns or more in all return types. This new threshold includes any combination of forms or returns, meaning W-2s and 1099s. And if you wanted more information on the new e-filing mandate, you could click on that link. But best practices for tax obligations: electronically file all returns, furnish copies of 1099s to your independent contractors, verify the worker W-9 information, names, tax IDs, and address for a seamless year-end tax filing. And a lot of this, even company names, like, you submit the W-9 for them to fill out. You need to double check that, because a lot of these owners, they may be owing back child support, back taxes, or anything like that. So you don't want to get in trouble by not doing that and withholding from their pay. So you want to double check and investigate and see if any of that's happening. So really look at those W-9s. And then partner with your legal and HR teams, if you have them, to stay up to date on any regulations. When bringing these guys on board, some of the don'ts: don't rely on email and phone exchange to collect contractor information. Use Excel or Google Docs or some type of software to track the status of onboarding them. You got step 1, step 2, step 3. You need to check them off and make sure that it's done. Don't wait until projects are in progress to align on scope, confidentiality obligations, ownership rights, and payment terms. You want to know who this subcontractor is going to be before you start a bigger project. Some do's: do use a written contractor agreement. You can offer a self-onboarding process for contractors, like via your website. Store all worker documents in a digital repository and collect and verify your W-9 info, your workers' names, tax IDs, and addresses for seamless year-end taxing. When paying them, some don'ts: don't pay contractors on a regular cadence as W-2 employees. So it's not every Friday. Track contractor payments with the manual methods, either Excel or Google Sheets. And don't forget to ask contractors for an invoice. I don't like that phone call: Eric, hey man, can I get $5,000 toward that job? Or, hey, can I get 50% up front? Well, I need an invoice. I need everything tracked paper-wise. Also, when paying, these are the do's: do pay contractors on time according to payment terms. This is a streamline the invoice and payment process. I love payment applications. And that states, hey, if they're submitting it by such and such date, they're going to get paid on this date. You have your collective payment applications. That way you can get your money from the owners that you're working for, so that you can pay your subcontractors on a certain date. But again, do ensure that you have an invoice for every transaction. There's also, lien agents. We, as the landscape contractor working over the big project, we're going to have to hire a lien agent. These subcontractors need to file as a top tier subcontractor on these larger jobs, so that they can guarantee that they do get paid. But a lot of them, again, they don't want to do that because they're operating underneath the radar. They're hiding from something. What it does, though, prove to you is if they are filing with the lien agent, that they are a legitimate business and that everything is pretty much squared away with them. Do provide options for how contractors can be paid, either through the checking account, PayPal, even some international methods. But, PayPal is good because they send out 1099s and everything to everybody that's using it. I don't like being paid or paying through like Apple Cash or what's the other one? It's how we pay our kids, like send them money at college.
Venmo.
Venmo's one. Yeah. And then there's another one.
Cash App.
Cash App. Yeah. I mean, I've I've hired an attorney to help us write a contract for one job. And he's like, man, just cash at me. I'm like, no, dude, I need to write you a check. That's just how we do it. But a lot of people are going to that. And as long as, I guess, if it's set up in the business name, it's okay. But again, use a system that allows you to pay the contractors quickly, flexibility, and store invoices. Implement automation, build that system. For one, identifying your talent. Utilize a marketplace to identify independent contractors in select industries, and use branded talent landing page to recruit self-identified talent. And if you become well known as this landscape contractor who's doing awesome projects, and they hear about that, and they hear from the irrigation contractor, hey man, yeah, James and Eric and Bill, they pay on time, they do good jobs. You'd want to work for them. The word's going to get out that you pay quick and that you do good work and you take care of your guys. But have a page that they can go to and actually apply and let you know that they are legit, and they can go ahead and implement and upload a lot of this documentation that you do need. When onboarding, offer end-to-end digital self-onboarding, dynamic organization of talent that enables faster deployment. So again, if somebody's serious about wanting to work for you and they self-onboard and submit all the documentation needed, you've got a good subcontractor. And then worker engagement. Have a mobile app for the independent contractor client communication. Make sure to collect qualitative two-sided feedback. Let the subcontractor know that you're there to listen. Also, the customer that you're working for, they need to be able to talk to each other, and you need to be able to get feedback from each. And then managing jobs. House assignments in a platform that offers desktop and mobile check-in, milestone tracking, completion approval, manage high volumes of work through automation, and then assignment of management and workflows. So, I love Jobber. I don't get paid by them or anything like that, but something as simple as that these guys can actually use, or, going back to the Microsoft platform and some of the scheduling and project management software systems that they have, it allows ease of these subs to log in and see where everything's at. I know with a lot of the track builders, they have their own software that schedules, and once you're an approved vendor or subcontractor, they're putting, job start dates on there, and you basically just log in and see where your next job is, and then submit your payment application and everything through that website, and everything is pretty much automatic. And then with compliance and payments, make sure every payment is accompanied with the invoice. I've said that multiple times here, so you got to have those invoices. Offer flexible payment options. Need to file federal and state 1099 tax forms, and then have the ability to process statutory deductions, garnishments, and NHR. Again, some of these guys are, may have back taxes they owe, or they got child support, and so once you get that W-9, you'll be able to feel or get a feel for what needs to be done there. And we are right at the 1 hour mark, and that leaves any time that you guys may want to have for questions or answers. Q&A. Do you guys have any questions?
No, I think it was good deal, man.
Oh, well, I appreciate that, sir. All righty. Well, if you guys don't have any questions or answers, that'll conclude the actual seminar, Independent Contractors. And guys, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.